Hello and welcome to a new episode. We're going to be working on Unit 4, Lessons 1 and 2. Our topic for the day is sports. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to be talking about sports. We will read a web page about Cairo International Stadium and we will answer questions. We will carry out an internet search about the African Cup of Nations competition, and we will use defining relative clauses. So, I would like to ask you, can you match these sports with the pictures below? It is okay if you do not know all of them. We have diving, hockey, horse riding, squash, table tennis. So I want you to look carefully at the pictures and try to guess to be able to match them with the correct letter. The first one is done for us. So picture B is actually diving. It's a picture of a person who's diving into the water. Now, let's check our answers together. Hockey is letter C. So the picture you see in letter C is a person playing hockey. He's holding a bat in his hand and he's hitting a ball with it. And it's a really intense and exciting sport. Let's move on to the next one. Horseback riding is, of course, letter E. So the picture next to letter E is horseback riding. And we're going to jump to squash, which is picture A. This is a person playing squash. I'm sure you know this game and you've probably played it a lot when you travel in the summer with your friends or with your family. And the last one is table tennis, which is letter D. Now, I would like to ask you, which sports do you like watching? So, for me, I enjoy watching a swimming competition. I don't enjoy watching soccer. However, I'm sure you are interested in watching a specific kind of sport. Just write it down in the comments under the video. Now we're going to be reading a text and we're going to be answering the following questions. So this text is about Cairo International Stadium. But before we read, I'd like to ask you, what do you know about the Cairo International Stadium? And which sports do you think you can watch there? So if you're going to the Cairo International Stadium, which kind of sport are you going to watch? Make a guess and write it down in your notebooks, and then let's read to check if we are correct. Cairo International Stadium is in Nasr City, which is in the northeast of Cairo, about 10 kilometers from the airport. The stadium has 75,000 seats for people who want to watch sports. In 2006, this was the place where football teams played in the African Cup of Nations. 16 teams from the countries all over Africa played in this competition, including Kenya, Morocco, and Tunisia. The final was between Egypt and the Ivory Coast. Egypt won the competition for the 5th time. Cairo International Stadium is the home of Egyptian football. You can watch nearly all of the most important football matches there, but there are lots of spaces which are used for other sports: tennis, basketball, hockey, table tennis, squash, and karate. There is a 50-meter swimming pool and diving pool. There's also a stadium where you can watch horse riding. So let's try and check our answers to question 2. What do you know about Cairo International Stadium? And which sports do you think you can watch there? So we know that it's a very spacious stadium and it is mostly known for watching football matches. However, it has other slots or other spaces for other kinds of sports such as tennis, basketball, hockey, table tennis, squash, and karate, along with swimming and diving. Now, we're going to jump to question 4. What do the following numbers refer to? 10, 75,000, 16, and 50. You can always go back to the text to find those numbers and know what they are related to. The first one is done for you, So 10 is how far it is from the stadium to the airport. And number 2, which is 75,000, that is a description of the number of seats in the stadium. That's a large number. And number 16 is the number of teams in the African Cup of Nations. And 50 is the size or length of the swimming pool. Now, I would like you guys to get your mobile phones and do an internet search. You can even use your tabs or your laptops. Where was the most recent African Cup of Nations competition and which country won? I want you to find out this information through an internet search and write it down, please. Now we're going to be moving on to lesson 2. I would like you to bring your notebooks and your pens so that we can get started with answering the grammar section. Okay, so number 1. Complete the sentences with where, which, or who. Number 1 is done for us. Let's read it together. The stadium has 75,000 seats for people who want to watch sports. Why did we use who here? Because the word people is followed by who, and we use who when we speak about people or human beings. Now, let's move on to number 2. In 2006, this was the place blank football teams played in the African Cup of Nations. So in number 2, what should we use? Where, the place where, or the place which, or the place who? And the answer is the place where. Very good job, guys. Let's move on to question 3. There are many spaces blank are used for other sports. Do we say there are many spaces where, or there are many spaces which, or there are many spaces who? And the answer is which. There are many spaces which are used for other sports. Number 4. There's also a stadium blank you can watch horse riding. There is a stadium where you can watch horse riding. So make sure you understand the sentence before you can come up with the correct word to be used. Now we're jumping into our grammar box for the day. We're going to be defining relative clauses or pronouns. So we use defining relative clauses or pronouns to tell us which noun we are talking about. So we choose the correct noun or the correct. So we use specific relative clauses to tell us which noun we are talking about. So we use the relative pronoun who for people. So if I'm talking about a person, I must use who to describe them. Miss Amal is the teacher who teaches us science. So there are many teachers. We have to know which one. So we use who to give more information about Miss Amal. Now, we use the relative pronoun which or that for things and animals. That's the horse which won the race or won the competition. There are many horses, so which tells us that we're talking about a specific horse. We use the relative pronoun where for places. So it is very easy to identify this one. Look at these houses. This is the house where grandfather lived when he was young. So house shows the place or the location. There are probably many houses in the street, so we know that this is the specific house for grandpa or grandfather. So we use where to show the place. Mr. Hamid has a son who is a doctor. Why did we use who? Because we're talking about a son, which is a person. Question 2. We bought a flat blank is near the school. Now we're describing the flat or the house. In that case, we will use which or that. Both of them are correct. Question 3. What is the name of the book blank you are reading? We're talking about a book, so we can use which or that as well. It's an object. Now, question 4. The people blank live next door are very friendly. The people blank live next door are very friendly. We're talking about people, so we may use who live. Number 5. This is the village blank my father was born. We're talking about something specific. So we can say where My father was born. It's a place, so we must use where. Number 6, please show me the photos blank you took on sports day. Here we're talking about a thing or an object, so we'll probably use which or that. Now let's jump to the discussion. Complete the sentences in as many different ways as you can. Let's look at the example on the right-hand side. This is the place where I was born. This is the place where cars are made. Number 1, this is the place where I grew up. You can use any continuation you like. Number 2, football is a sport that I enjoy. A good friend is someone who helps me. Cairo is the city that never sleeps. And English is a subject that not everyone enjoys. There are suggested answers here that you can use as well. So you have more examples to listen to and then create your own. That's a wrap, guys. I want to thank you. You did a great job today. You can always practice communicating everything we learn, okay? We're going to be wrapping up and we have done the following. Talked about sports, read a web page about Cairo International Stadium and answered questions. We carried out an internet search for the African Cup of Nations competition and we used defining relative clauses. Thank you guys. That was Ms. Sara Bassiouni. Have a wonderful night.